Hi, Church. Pastor Jeff here in the shadow of my many books on hope today because I want to talk about anxiety and what's happening in our world right now. I'm sure I don't have to tell you all that our country is changing at a rapid pace right now. Our government is anyway. And the news that's coming out of Washington is coming fast. It's coming hard in a way that's difficult to absorb. And I'm finding that it's leaving me somewhere between anxious and exhausted. No, not between anxious and exhausted. Somehow both anxious and exhausted at the same time. And it's not easy. And I've heard from a number of you that you're feeling this anxiousness too. And that's why I wanted to address it, because I think this is where faith comes in. This is where we need church. This is where we need God to help us find how to hold ourselves in a time like this. So no matter what you think of the politics, it's still difficult to absorb and difficult to take in. And I want to share with you two tools that have occurred to me many times in the last couple weeks, and I hope that they help you too. Now, I don't think I've ever tried to put words on the screen in one of these videos, so I'm hoping this goes well after I finish recording. But I'm going to turn my camera to the side here, introduce you to my plant, whose name is Robert. Think about that for a minute. And now I'll share with you the Serenity Prayer. Now, this prayer was written by Reinhold Niebuhr, a theologian. In the 20s or 30s is when the prayer began to become better known. Alcoholics Anonymous adopted it, and it is beautiful. It has helped so many people. It goes like this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. The serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, obviously, that last one is a part of the tricky part, and that's where we need God to find the wisdom. But just asking for the serenity to accept the things I cannot change is huge. And it's not easy to admit that there are things in this world that we cannot change. But there's something about admitting that, about acknowledging that, about consenting to that there are some things that I cannot change, that somehow opens up that second part, that gives us the courage to change the things we can, even if it's just our own attitude. Maybe it's the way we interact with the people around us. There's something, somehow the two go together. The serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can. Now, I'll tell you, this prayer, there is also a long version of this prayer that does not appear to actually be written by Niebuhr. It was developed through the AA community over the years. And if you want to, you can look up the longer version online, but I'll tell you the basic gist of it is about living in the moment. It goes on about talking about living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time. And I find that when I do that, when I get my head out of the news and focus on what's right in front of me, that changes my outlook too, because it reminds me that there is still a lot of good. For all the things that are difficult to deal with in the world right now, there's, well, to be totally honest with you, more good that's right in front of me that I wouldn't want to miss. And so I'm glad for the reminder to live in that moment. So that's the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, I mentioned I was going to give you two tools. The other one is from Martin Luther King Jr.'s a letter from a Birmingham jail. Once from the pulpit, I accidentally called it the letter to a Birmingham jail. Yeah, I don't think the jail was really that curious. The letter was written to his fellow Christian and Jewish clergy, actually, and it was talking about the action that he and some others had taken that got him into the Birmingham jail. And it's a wonderful letter to read. It is a classic piece of literature, frankly. But one of the things that's in it is 4 basic steps to any nonviolent action. So if you're going to take action, political action, protesting or something like that, these are the 4 steps to do it well and in a way that is in line with nonviolence, which we see in Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi, and many lift up Jesus as the ultimate nonviolent leader. Now, maybe there will come a time when we feel called to action, when you feel called to action. But in this moment, steps 1 and 3 is what I want you to pay the most attention to, okay? Here they are. King says that in any nonviolent campaign, there are 4 basic steps. Collection of the facts to determine whether injustices exist. Negotiation. So in other words, step 1 is to get your facts straight. Make sure you really understand what it is. Now, I don't remember if this is the letter to Birmingham, or from a Birmingham jail, or if this was somewhere else I read it. But actually go back to the original source. So if there is a bill, if there is a something that you are against, really research to make sure you have it right, because you would be surprised how often even responsible journalists only report part of the picture for lack of time, and when you fill in the rest of it, you may realize you were slightly off in your understanding. So step 1 is make sure you have the story absolutely straight yourself from multiple sources, from different sources, from original sources. Step 2 then is negotiation, which means well, what King is talking about is an unjust law. Talk to those who made it. See if you can work this out by talking. Step 3 then is self-purification. Now, isn't that interesting? So step 4 is direct action, but isn't it telling that King saw the importance of stepping back at that point? Of first of all, making sure you have your facts straight and trying to talk it out as best you can, but then taking a moment to step back and make sure that your heart is in the right place, that you are coming from a good place in your complaints about it. Because only when we come from a pure heart, only when our actions or our words emerge from a place of peace within us, can they bring peace in the world. Because if they come from a place of unrighteous anger within us, if they come from a place of retribution, if they come from anything like that, it's not actually going to help the world. It's not going to help bring peace to the situation. The only way we can help bring more peace and calm into the world is if we first learn to cultivate that peace and calm in our own hearts and act out of that. Now, isn't that helpful? I find that when I spend too much time in the news these days, important as it is to keep up on things, when I spend too much time in it, I begin to lose that peace and calm in my own self. But we have to have it. It means everything when it comes to carrying ourselves, to appreciating the good that's around us despite it all, and certainly in any ability that may or may not come to make a difference. Making sure you have your facts straight and cultivating the peace within counts for a lot. Now, easier said than done, of course, but I find even just having the reminder is a help. Even just remembering that peace and calm is something that can be cultivated within myself is a reminder that helps me find it right there, and I hope it does for you too, because in all of this, we have to remember that God is God, that the resurrection is true, and that the promises God has given us for good are still there. And we have to trust that God is continuing to bring our world toward that which is good, and we'll do everything we can to help. But we can't lose sight of that promise. To go back to Martin Luther King Jr. again, he actually quoted somebody else as saying that the arc of the universe is long. In other words, it takes its sweet time some days, but it does bend toward justice. And in that we place our hope. All right, I hope these tools help you. Kind of a quick overview. I'll bet they make it into sermons in the coming weeks too. We'll see how that goes. I would love to know how you're feeling and how you're thinking. You can, if you get this by email, you can reply to it, and I read everything that comes and reply. And we'll continue praying for one another too, because I believe that God is in all things, even the difficult and unfortunate ones, bringing us to good. And it just may be our presence and our prayers that help make that happen. All right. It's good to talk to you, church. I look forward to hearing from you, and I will see you soon.